Alright, another broadcast day begins. So it's the morning after Stickam Saturday. Yeah, a couple hours later. Didn't get much sleep, but I have to do a few chores. So anyway, I figure I will start the video inside the gazebo. Look, there's a little bug on the roof. Look, he's on the roof and he can't get in. There's a lot of these bugs. I don't know what there are, but they're all over the place. Uh-oh, cat sees me in here. This could be big trouble. The cat figures out that this is screen and that it can tear a hole in it. Ooh, that will be bad news for me. So anyway, enough time wasted. I do have to pet the cat because, you know, you get a complex if I don't. Yes. You need this morning little scratch. Yes. So, a little free cat footage. Alright, I know it's not free. It occupies brain space and whatnot. Get to it already. Get to the gloom and the doom. Enough of this cute whatever. Yeah, whatever. Whatever that thing is. But, oh. Yes. Oh, isn't that just precious? So anyway. Alright. To work. Alright, so anyway, Stickam did end. It was a good night. I mean, you know, went all over the place. And, you know, really good. Especially some certain things. Certain places. Well, wait, I won't go into that because, you know, private stuff. Anyway, but yeah, it was a good night. And, good night for me. Anyway, I had an okay time, which is rare. Because sometimes it just feels like work. And last night didn't really feel like work. But anyway, the last hour with Pyro was sort of a bummer. Because, you know, he just won't, he won't. You know, obviously from his perspective, I won't. And he keeps wanting to. We keep challenging each other to a paraphrase of each other's position, and it's the good news is we've gotten to the core of it, you know, which is the ultimate context kind of thing. I'm philosophizing from a context that attempts to eliminate all presumption in terms of what's the native role of the organism. You know, the survival thing, the justify your desire thing. Okay, because I've noticed throughout my life that I desired a lot of things that were bullshit. And like, you know, you could, for example, get very spiritual, like sacred. Get very sacred, like Professor Anton would suggest, about climbing Mount Everest. You can say, oh, it's the greatest thing in the world, and blah, 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 blah. And there's all this big bullshitty thing. And when it comes down to it, it's just bullshit. It's just made out of this obsession you have. Just like my definition of beauty. It's completely my definition. Alright? Yeah, I mean, it might be shared with some other males. But, yeah, and it's really, you know, a sensual definition. It's usually going to, if there's something beautiful, it's usually going to have something I can somehow connect the dots and make it say vagina somewhere. But anyway, yeah, and it's all just, I can see the psychology in this. There's nothing sacred. Okay, the sacred part is in the feeling, not in the thing that contrives it, the thing that makes it. And that's where this bottom line thing comes from. Is that what makes us? And as I've said before, there's this motivating force that keeps us wiggling through the humus, keeps me navigating, pushing me through it, saying, yes, play, stay in the game, get your cheese. Back to the rat chasing cheese metaphor, but it really is the game. And that perception of value is the intuitive position, the natural state, probably, of an organism. Because that's obviously how nature built us, is to be motivated. And so it takes a little bit of work to, you know, pull your intelligence out of that native disposition and have it do real honest thinking. You know, that isn't going to be clouded by this presumptive perception of value, and especially a value that culture is so emphasized in the way that, you know, you're raised to understand the evil is killing a baby, not having a baby. Obviously. I mean, that's, I guess, could be nothing more dramatic than the idea that giving birth, imposing life, is intrinsically beautiful, and ending life is intrinsically naughty and shameful and nasty. And I would argue that that's not made out of anything logical, that that's just a platitude, a cultural platitude. It's just stated without any substance. It's a universal presumption, pretty much universal. That's just completely made out of no logical substance. Because we can sort of see, if you analyze your psychology, that all this attraction shit is just that. It's attraction. You are compelled to see value. You're compelled to chase it. I don't even know if compelled to see it is right. You see it, and part of the seeing process is going to be the nature of your intelligence or your mind is pursuing. I mean, that's how we've been designed to pursue. And so, unless you're pursuing something that's outside of some human presumptive ambition, some presumptive definition of good, and you have some definition like truth or something like that to be pursuing, then you're probably just going to fall right into line and march the popular march of playing the game. So again, we're back to metaphors and ways of maybe creating intelligent imagery or metaphors that make it possible to see how ludicrous it all is. I mean, you could go through the list of all the silly things people chase that don't add up to anything in the end, that mean nothing on your deathbed kind of stuff. And I guess part of the argument I was having with Pyro, we finally got to, was I threw a couple of questions at him. He didn't really answer, but how many people is enough people? All these people who have this notion, it's somehow life-affirming notion. I mean, how many zillions of these things would you want running around the universe? And then would you take responsibility for that creation if that was the consequence? If the button said, make 1 billion of them, would you make another billion? And especially make them another billion in a context where there is no protection against exploitation or cancer and watching their children die or some other horrors that are going to be imposed on these organisms. Would you want to take responsibility for it? Would it be a willful decision, especially if we could transfer what the activity is and who's having it? So what if we take a movie like District 9, okay, where real quickly there's an alien life form that comes down to Earth and we treat it like subhumans. No surprise there. But would you create that? If that was the form that consciousness was in, would you hit the button to make more of those? And you sort of can think and figure out that, oh yeah, if that's what the world would look like, maybe I wouldn't press the button. I mean, maybe if the world is going to be, me living out my ambition, and there's so many people that so obviously fall into that trap. There's so many of these stage mothers out there, and sports hero fathers that have this ambition that their children are somehow going to live out their ambition in the world. And it's just so unrealistic and silly. So, I mean, if you just change the model, the configuration, a little bit, you can start to see how subjectively polluted your perception of this life thing is. So, if there was a rule that the next generation of human beings there would be none of your race. So your race would no longer be a player, okay, in the human experiment. Would you have the same perception of value? If their habits were completely different than your own, if their culture was completely different than your own, it sort of makes it easy to see, that it is just a subjective notion of value and not a objective, rational description of a purposeful experiment. So anyway, so it really got heated because, Pyro is a life affirmer. He thinks that,